Jack arrived before the store. It was named Alfix Grocery Store. This was the store that he just bought over to start his life here in the city. He had spent more than half of his years of savings to buy it alongside the groceries inside. He wasn't going to change the name, as the store that he was opening was only temporary. If things go well, he would absolutely find a better location. He could see that it was a decent one. Furthermore, the location of the store wasn't bad too, as he could see that it wasn't hidden in some corner. Around the store, there were some other stores that were already open as it was already afternoon. But the business at this time wasn't that good as the traffic was mainly in the morning and evening. Jack took out the keys that he'd received from the agency and opened the grocery store. As he entered, he found that the store was tidy. There was a counter where he would be operating the store closer to the door. It was located at the right side of the door. Then, he could see that there were rows of shelves and fridges that were holding the stock that he was supposed to sell. After confirming that everything was okay, he sat at the counter. He wanted to start working immediately. After all, he couldn't afford lazing around when there were some people who thought so lowly of him. Since it was still afternoon, there were no customers at all. Furthermore, Jack decided not to add stock at all and retained everything that was present there. He would see the way that the business goes before he can add more stock. Currently, most of the things that he was selling were those that didn't need to be fresh. They were things like packed milk, noodles and so on. These things had a shelf life and Jack had confirmed that they had not expired. As for the prices, there was no need for him to worry at all. The prices were written on the shelves. Furthermore, this store could be considered a mini-mart. If he wanted to efficiently operate it, he would need to have at least 2 people to assist him. But it would have to wait for later. After confirming that everything was okay, he sat at the counter. He wanted to start working immediately. After all, he couldn't afford lazing around when there were some people who thought so lowly of him. Since it was still afternoon, there were no customers at all. Furthermore, Jack decided not to add stock at all and retained everything that was present there. He would see the way that the business goes before he can add more stock. Currently, most of the things that he was selling were those that didn't need to be fresh. They were things like packed milk, noodles and so on. These things had a shelf life and Jack had confirmed that they had not expired. He stood up and welcomed the man. "Hello, how may I help you?" "I'd like some groceries. I'm going to work and I can't be coming to the grocery every day. So, I want those that can last a good period of time." The man replied. Jack showed him into the store and the man began picking some groceries. He picked rice, flour, sugar and several other things. Of course, the purchase wasn't in bulk, but for a person living alone, they could last him at least a week. "Why don't you have vegetables?" The man frowned after seeing that there were no vegetables in the store. Jack knew that this was going to happen. So he calmly explained, the store was closed for 2 days and if they would have brought the vegetables, they wouldn't have been fresh. So the vegetables would be coming in tomorrow. The man nodded as he found this reasonable. Nobody wanted groceries that weren't fresh if there was another place that they could get those that were fresh. The man came to the counter to pay. After calculating, he found that the bill was $300. This wasn't that much due to the low quality of the products that could be found in this kind of street. After all, one had to know that this was the poorest street in the entire city. So it was obvious that the products being sold here would match the residents in terms of price. If he brought things that cost thousands per kilogram, then it was obvious that people wouldn't buy them, or those who would be buying them would be counted by a single hand. After all, the depths of the pockets talked about what a person would eat. The man touched his pockets, but after a while, he found that there was no wallet there. So he looked at Jack with a sorry expression as he said, "It seems that I was in so much hurry that I forgot my wallet. Can I do transfer?" Jack nodded. There was no problem at all as long as the payment was done. So he gave his account number and the man sent the money before leaving immediately. It seemed that he was in a hurry to do something. As soon as the bank confirmation message arrived, Jack heard a robotic voice in his head. "Ding. Congratulations on activating the 100 times income multiplier." "Ding. You've earned $300. Multiplier replied. "You've received $30,000. "Ding. First income. As a reward, you gain a Suzuki GSX or 1000R. The voice rang 3 times and that it made Jack feel like he was hallucinating. But the fact was that he has never taken any drug, so He felt that there was no way that he could be hallucinating. 100 times income multiplier? What's this? Jack asked himself. Before he could think further, the phone in his hand vibrated. Upon looking at the screen, Jack was dumbfounded. Flyer's bank account received $30,000. New balance is $278,861. That message confirmed the second message about his income being multiplied by 100 times. Now, what was all this about? Ding! You are the lucky host of the Blue Planet. You've been selected by the 100 times income multiplier system. With this system, as long as you earn any income by the rightful means, then it will be multiplied by 100 times. Ding! There are things that will be multiplied by 100 in terms of quality and others would be multiplied in terms of quantity. The robotic voice echoed in his head as the explanation about what was happening immediately got explained to him. Jack wasn't sure if he was dreaming or hallucinating, maybe both. He pinched his arm and felt the pain. This meant that all of this was real. Furthermore, the bank message confirmed that he had indeed received $30,000 in his account after the transaction was done. After taking a moment to cool himself down, Jack sat on the chair behind the counter and asked in his mind, "Can you tell me more about the system?" Ding! I am your guide, Angel. I will help you with matters concerning the system. So, for the question that you've just asked, the system is something supernatural that's out of the Blue Planet. Of course, you're not qualified to know about the origins of the system. Ding! The system's main function is to make sure that people don't get lazy. You will be an example. By working hard, your rewards will be great. So, the system will reward you for your hard work by multiplying the income that you receive from working hard by 100 times. Ding! Of course, there's a limitation. Anything that's not earned by working cannot be multiplied. So, don't you think of cheating? Jack thought for a moment and couldn't help but get excited. This was beyond his imaginations. But he could only thank his lucky stars in that, among the billions of people in the Blue Planet, the system had chosen him. Then he thought of something. Is there any other person in the planet that has a system? Ding! Negative. There's nobody else with a system in the Blue Planet, as it is a unique. There are no copies. Jack, for some reason, let out a sigh of relief. Then, he couldn't help but get excited. As long as he could work hard and expand his business, then he would really get something bigger. This was something that he was really looking forward to. Ding! There's another program. The reward system. Your first income in each and every business branch will make you receive a reward from the system. Ding! There's another reward, that is, monthly reward, semi-annual reward, yearly reward, decade reward, century reward, millennium reward, and so on. Jack's mouth was forced to stay wide open after hearing the system's words. He could understand the first reward, monthly, and even a decade reward. But what the hell with his century and millennium rewards? Did the system want him to work hard for a whole century? No, scratch that. A millennium? That's 1,000 years we're talking about here. Not talking about a person who's dedicated for 100 years of working. It was a question whether that person would be able to live that long. And what's more, according to the current calendar, it had only been 2 millenniums since the first time that they started counting. Now, just how many generations had gone by in the 2 millenniums? Jack calmed himself down and asked, how on earth am I supposed to live for a millennium? Ding! With a system, as long as the host works hard, nothing is impossible. You mean that I can become an immortal? Be able to fly? He couldn't help but start imagining. Ding! That's right. And the system confirmed this. Jack wanted to jump off his seat and run around shouting about his luck. But he still managed to calm himself down. By the way, where's my reward for the first income? Jack asked. Ding! The key is inside the drawer of the counter. The motorcycle is parked outside the store. Jack opened the drawer and found the key. It seemed that the system was right. But how on earth did the key get inside the drawer? Well, not like it matters. He'll just receive the reward. He was just about to go out of the store and take a look at the motorcycle when a person entered the store. It was a lady in her early 20s. Hello, I need some groceries, she said as soon as she saw Jack behind the counter. He was just about to go out of the store and take a look at the motorcycle when a person entered the store. It was a lady in her early 20s. "Hello, I need some groceries," she said as soon as she saw Jack behind the counter. Since he was having a customer, then he would surely make sure to operate the store first before checking out the bike. Jack sold to the lady a few groceries. Just like the man that had just left, she asked for the vegetables. Of course, Jack replied that they would be available the following day. After all, after getting the system, he would make sure that the customers get satisfied with his services. The total this time was $175. The lady paid via cash. She had wanted the vegetables the most, but since they weren't available, she bought some spices and other small things. As soon as he kept the money inside the drawer of the counter, the system's robotic voice echoed, followed by the vibration of his phone. "Ding! You've earned $175. Multiplier applied. You've received $17,500. He took out his phone, and just as he had expected, the vibration was caused by the message from the bank. Flyer's bank account received $17,325. Current balance is $296,361. Jack could finally see that the system wasn't going to be cheated. After all, he was supposed to receive $17,500. But since he had received $175, then this amount was deducted from the total and the rest was sent into his bank account. Jack then thought to himself, "It seems that I can get back all the money that I spent as well as make a profit on my first day. This is going to be amazing." Just like that, Jack forgot about the motorcycle that he had just received as a reward from the system. The customers were coming into the store one after the other, and the number was increasing as time went on. Most of them asked for vegetables, but since there were no vegetables, they had no choice but to try the other stores. What's more, there were some of them that began complaining and left without purchasing anything. "If you don't have vegetables, then why did you open the store? Hey, I just wasted a lot of time to get here. Now you're telling me that there are no vegetables? Hey, if you don't want to run the store, just close it down." But since Jack was in good mood from the amount of money that was entering his account, he definitely ignored the angered voices of the customers. Of course, he would bring the vegetables on the following day. He knew that no matter how much he listened to them, there was no way that he was going to change the situation. After all, there were no vegetables in the store, and nothing could change that for the time being. That would change the following day. After all, most of the people that came to the store mostly wanted vegetables. It was around 9:30 p.m. that Jack closed the store. The customers had stopped coming to the store at around 9:10 p.m. The earnings today could be said to be the most that he had gotten in his life. He had earned a total of $8,345. This was added to the fact that the vegetables were not there, or else he would have earned a lot more. Although this could be seen as much, if one considered that the stock had to be maintained, the profit from this was only around $1,050. But this was good too, as if he multiplied by 30, this would be at least $30,000 a month. Midnight Rider. The monthly rent was only $7,000. So, he could be said to be earning about $23,000 per month. But that was on a normal situation. With 100 times income multiplier, Jack's income of the day wasn't that small. He took his phone and checked the balance in his account. Flyer's bank savings account balance is $1,124,011. His bank account already had over $1 million. On this day, the customers had mostly paid in cash. The total cash amount that he was having was $7,025. This was the amount that was given to him after the purchases. Jack immediately made a decision. All the cash that he would be receiving was the one that he would be spending on himself. As for the ones that came into his account, he would use all of that in his business. But in the future, if there would be more money, he surely would spend on himself. He was already a millionaire, but he knew that this wasn't enough. If the Alfonso family wanted to cause him problems, there was no way that he could resist. He would be forced to go to another city again. He took out the key to the motorcycle as he closed the store. The streets were slightly lit up by streetlights. There were some areas that were dark as the streetlights weren't working there. But since he was closer to the richer area, the area in front of his store was fully lit. As soon as he got out, he found that in the small parking space of the store, there was a modern bike parked there. There were some people that were looking at it in admiration. They kept talking about it. Jack got to the small crowd and took out the key. He then pushed open the reluctant crowd before sitting on the bike. He could feel that it was kind of comfortable sitting on it. After ignition, he sped away from the store as the crowd of youngsters made way. "Do you know that person?" I think he's the one that was in the store. So, he's the new owner of the store? Maybe. After all, with such a bike, how can he be a small-time employee? Get 2 free spins now and win up to 1.5 lakh as a welcome bonus. Pair I match. People suffering from knee pain should read this. Easy moves. The youngsters discussed for some time before they dispersed. On the other hand, Jack enjoyed the thrill of riding the bike. This wasn't his first time riding one, as he knew how to drive even cars. This was something that all members of Alfonso family had to know. So, although he wasn't like that, he was still able to learn most of the things like his other siblings. With the headlights on, all the areas that were dark were lit up. Thus, in just a few minutes, Jack had arrived at his apartment. He wanted to go for a few more rounds but felt that things won't work out well as at night time. Furthermore, Yellow Street wasn't somewhere safe, as there were some gangsters loitering around the street at such a time. He felt that he would have to get an assistant to help him with the store now that his source of income was assured. This apartment had a small parking space. Jack went forward and packed his bike. There were 2 Toyota Corolla cars that were packed there. Of course, they were old ones. But still, they were better than those that had to walk on foot while going to work. After locking the bike, he took the keys and the helmet which was on the bike but he didn't wear and headed back to his room. After a simple meal, he laid down on his bed and began thinking about what he was going to do the following day. First off, he would have to purchase the store. He found that the store was in a good place and he didn't lack customers. If not for the lack of vegetables in the store, then he was sure that he would have earned even more. After all, he had earned more than twice the amount that he had been saving for 6 years. The next thing was to find the source of stock. He would have to find a reliable source where he could get things to sell there in the store. For that, he would have to take a few trips around the city to find someone that he could come to an agreement with so that they can supply him with goods. Then, the assistant for the store. No, he would have to hand over the store to another person while he himself would deal with expanding the business or opening other businesses. There were some companies that had people that could do the job. These small companies were the ones that could offer the citizens the help in looking for jobs at a small monthly interest from their income. They were reliable. So, he wasn't going to get worried that the person that he would employ would run away with money. After all of their details were recorded in the company. Now, to expand the business, he would need to do more than just getting a store. If he wants to get a better source of income, he would have to go to a better street. But of course, he wouldn't close down the store here in Yellow Street. He might as well open branches for the store. After thinking it through, he found that it would be good if he could just open branches for Alfix grocery store in the city. This way, he could at least have something to hold on to first. Then, after the stores are opened, he could place the headquarters in the center of the city. Then, from there, if things went well, he would influence other cities too. With 100 times income multiplier, he wasn't worried about money. The only thing that he would have to deal with would be getting connections and suppliers. As long as he was assured of the supply, he wouldn't have to worry about anything. Buzz. At this time, his phone vibrated. He took it and looked at it. It was a message from the butler of Alfonso family. Jack is no longer a member of Alfonso family. But since he has the bloodline of the Alfonsos, he would be given a compensation of $500,000. It is expected that Jack would not dare to use the Alfonso family's influence in any way or he would be punished. Flyer's bank account received $500,000. Current balance is $1,624,011. Not long after that. Ding! You've earned $500,000. Multiplier applied. You've received $50 million. Flyer's bank account received $50 million. Current balance is $51,624,011. Oh, that works too? Jack asked out loud. Jack didn't know what to say about the system. The money that Alfonso family had given him was so that he could fend for himself without using the name Alfonso. But here, the system took it as an income. So, he had to know what's income and what's not. System, why is the compensation from the family being counted as income? Ding. It seems that you don't know the definition of income. I'll define it for you. Income is anything that comes in. If you earn money from stealing or robbing, that's income. If you go around being beaten up before being paid, that's income. Ding. In other words, as long as you do something and you get something else in return, that will be counted as income. Ding. Of course, the system limits what income will be multiplied. If you steal from a person, that will not be multiplied. If you receive bribes, that will not be multiplied. Ding. You have just received $500,000 from your family. That is the income from defecting from Alfonso family. Since it's not counted as illegal as nobody is going to suffer, it has been multiplied. Jack was let in silence for a long period of time by the lengthy system explanation. He was trying to think of other sources of income that could be counted as legal by the system. Why is a bribe considered illegal? It doesn't hurt a person, does it? After thinking for a moment, he asked. Ding. Bribes are going to hurt a person. After all, if a person bribes you, it's either that the person has done a mistake and doesn't want to be punished, or he's incompetent and is trying to buy his way in. Ding. For the first one. If he did a mistake like hitting another person, that is considered hurting someone. Hey, that's too direct. I mean, there are other things, you know. Jack couldn't help but complain at the system's deduction of a mistake. Ding. Okay, he might have accidentally hit another person with a car, that's hurting others. Jack. Ding. He might have accidentally poured hot tea on another person's face, thus causing this person to be admitted in the hospital. This is considered hurting a person. You're helpless, Jack sighed. Ding. For the second one, if a person is incompetent and buys his way into a job, then he's definitely causing the competent but unemployed fellows out there to continue being unemployed. Jack. He seriously didn't know what to say about the system now. This system seriously had some issues. It definitely needed service. Leaving that aside, Jack focused in the issue of him no longer being a member of Alfonso family. Although he hadn't expected it, he wasn't surprised at all. After all, what was making him stay in the family mansion was his mother Anne. Now that she was dead for 4 years and Jack was an adult now, they could disown him. Although it was the butler that had sent the message, Jack knew that this was his father's decision. After all, he was the head of the family and the CEO of Fonso Group. He didn't care that much about being removed as a member of the family. It wasn't like he was depending on the family name to do anything anyway. Furthermore, he has a system now and he didn't think that there would be any problem. After all, the system would multiply his income by 100 but his losses would remain the same. In order to make sure that he was no longer counted as a member of Alfonso family in the future, he saved the message that he had received in the email. If they saw him succeeding in the future and come trying to pull him back into the family, he would show the message to them. He had saved who the sender was plus the contact number. After that, Jack looked at his account balance. Now that he was having 50 million, it wasn't bad if he could get a good villa or maybe a mansion to stay in. With the way that the system was rewarding him, who knew if tomorrow he would be rewarded by a helicopter or maybe some sport cars? If so, with the small parking space of the apartment, there was nowhere that he was going to pack them. Furthermore, this was a backward place. So, if an expensive vehicle appeared here, it was obvious that there would be people surrounding it and it won't be difficult for several livestream celebrities to claim that the cars belonged to their boyfriend. So, all of that would have to wait for the following. Jack had a nice sleep and only woke up at 7 in the morning. He went to the shared bathroom of the apartment and took a shower before changing into a blue jeans and a yellow t-shirt. He wore casually, after all, he wasn't going to an office. He got out of the room and headed downstairs with the key and helmet. Just like the previous day, there were several people that were curiously eyeing his bike. After all, it looked out of place. You know, this is my bike. I bought it yesterday. Really? Then, can you give me so that I can go for a ride? What do you mean? Do you know how much it cost me to buy this bike? It was $80,000. If I give you and you get an accident with it, how are you going to repair it? Ah. Hey handsome, why don't we go for a ride together on your bike? Cough. Not now, I still have to do something else. Maybe later. Jack was left speechless after hearing the conversation. As he pushed through the crowd, he found a guy who seemed to be in his mid-20s leaning on his bike. See, this was what I was talking about. This was just a bike that cost about $170,000. Yet here, there was someone already claiming to own it. He even said that it cost only $80,000. What a shameless guy. Furthermore, he even found an excuse to evade riding the bike. But, if you have somewhere to go, then why are you still leaning on the bike instead of hurrying on your way? Jack sighed before he approached the bike. As soon as the young man saw Jack approaching, he frowned and waved his hand impatiently. Hey buddy, you might not have heard but I own this bike. And, I'm about to go somewhere and I'm not lending it to anyone. Jack was left speechless once again. Who the hell said that he wanted to borrow the bike? That's my bike. All right? He simply shook his head as he took out the key and shook it in front of the guy's eyes. He then patted the helmet that he was holding in his left hand. Oh, you own your own bike? I'm not going for racing at all. I've got somewhere to go. The guy raised his brows slightly before waving Jack off. Jack? Is this person a retard? He wondered to himself. Ahem, I mean I own the bike. Jack coughed slightly and pointed at the bike that the man was leaning on. The guy looked behind him before he looked at Jack with a face that was full of question marks. I don't see any bike behind me. Jack twitched as he heard this. He sighed and said, I mean, I own the bike that you're leaning on. As he said this, he shook the key in front of the guy once again. The guy frowned for a moment before his face revealed as if he had just gotten an epiphany. He coughed embarrassedly and moved to the side. Jack just shook his head, got on the bike, put on his helmet before he accelerated away from the apartment area. It was only after he left that the crowd reacted. Wait a second, didn't that guy just now claim that the bike was his? Yeah, right. Where's this guy? He shamelessly claimed that he had bought it yesterday. He was so smug. It turns out that it wasn't even his. So, that's why he was just leaning there and didn't dare to give the bike to someone for a ride. I knew it. I didn't see a key on him. Shameless, you're also bragging. Wait a second, where's that guy? Hey, he was here a second ago. I swear I saw him standing next to him and I didn't see him leave. That guy sure is fast. The crowd was left speechless once again. It turned out that as they were still understanding the situation, the guy had already fled. What was surprising was that in the crowd of about 20 people, nobody saw him getting away. Jack knew nothing of this, but he was still reminding himself that he had to get a house on this very day. Otherwise, it won't be long before a person says that she was his girlfriend. Speaking of a girlfriend, he wondered what was contained in the envelope that his mother had left him. Still, he put that thought aside as he headed towards the company that had people that were looking for employment. With a bike's speed, he got there in slightly over 30 minutes. It was located in another street that could be said to be better than Yellow Street. Not only was it cleaner, but the buildings here were also better. This was the Anston Street. It could be said to be where people came to look for job. Or, it could be said that this was the headquarter for those non-employed from several streets that were like Yellow Street. He arrived in front of Dan's Brokers. After parking his bike, he headed straight for the entrance of the building. It was bigger than the shop's agency back in Yellow Street. As he entered, he found that inside was crowded. Although it was crowded, he could see that it was organized well. After all, although the ground floor was an open space, there were plaques hanging in several areas showing the different divisions of professions. There was sales department where he wanted to go to, cleaning department, security department, delivery department and so on. As soon as they saw him entering, those that were in charge of several departments ran to him. Hello sir, what department would you like to visit? One of them, who was a beauty, asked with a charming smile. Jack was somehow startled when he saw them rushing towards him but calmed down after hearing the question. I mainly want the sales department but I could use the cleaning and delivery department as well, he said after a moment contemplation. After hearing what Jack said, those from the other departments that Jack hadn't mentioned left while feeling dejected. Of course, they didn't forget to throw envious gazes at the three that had stayed behind. This place was competition. If people of your department were given a job, then your salary would increase. It's just like how commission was earned. If many people of your department get employed, then you would get much income from the interests that the company would be cutting from the income of those employed through the company. This way, sir. The lady showed Jack to her department. Since Jack had said that he wanted those from the sales department but he could also use those from the cleaning and delivery department, it meant that he was prioritizing the sales department. After taking a seat, the lady asked, "What kind of employee do you want? A charming girl? A mature lady? A youngster? An able-bodied man?" Jack was rendered speechless by this person on charge. It was as if the people here were clothes and she was talking about the clothing styles. Anyway, he still answered, "I want someone capable. I don't want a person that would be needing my supervision every moment. And it should be someone that can work in a grocery store." Hearing Jack's description of what he wanted, the lady nodded her head. Then, she turned towards the people who were looking for a job and called out, "Agnes, come over." A lady who could be said to be a beauty of 89 stood up from the crowd under the envious gazes of her fellows. She walked hurriedly towards the counter. According to what he saw, she had to be in her late 20s if not her early 30s. The way that she was walking was filled with both determination and confidence. Jack nodded as he saw this. It seemed that this wasn't a person that was going to be shy in front of customers. He just hoped that she was a person that could work under minimal or no supervision at all. As soon as she arrived at the counter, the lady who was in charge of the sales department did the introduction. This is Agnes. She has worked in a grocery store for 3 years and the store was closed due to the owner of the store leaving the city. She hasn't been on duty for a week now, so her skills haven't gotten rusty yet. Jack nodded. This was what he was looking for. Since she had experience in running a grocery store, then she could advise him on what he would be needed to do in terms of stock and prices. One had to know that although Jack had studied, he wasn't proficient in running a store. Furthermore, a grocery store was different from a bakery. So, everything had their own way that needed to be followed for the profits to be maximized. He nodded his head to show his acceptance. As for the details and whatever, this broker's company could deal with it. If there were any problems that were going to occur, then he would be sure to come back to this company to demand for compensation. Well, with $50 million in his account, the store could be said not to be worth that much. But still, there was no harm in making sure that his first business didn't fail. So, after he was done with the sales department, he immediately headed to the delivery department. This was another area that needed trustworthy people. It wouldn't be good if the person that was supposed to deliver goods suddenly runs away with the goods. The one in charge here was a middle-aged man. Here, after giving the terms such as knowing the city well and that person must have done several grocery deliveries, knows how to drive and so on, he got a person. His name was George. Although he was only 23 years old, he had been working as a delivery person for 5 years and none of his previous employers had a complaint. Jack nodded. This was what he wanted. As for the cleaning department, there were not that many conditions other than being able to work with others in the store. After he was done selecting, it was time to discuss about payment and contract. Jack wanted long-term employees, not those that would work for 3 days and then disappear or quit. So, the sales department would be taking $3,000 a month, the delivery $2,500 and cleaning would be $2,000 a month. The term that they had signed was that they would be paid the first month in advance but the working period would be 6 months. After 6 months, if they wanted to continue working for him, they would sign another contract to extend their working period. As for the service fee, it was just $1,000 which Jack paid without much thought. In total, he had spent $8,500 on this trip. But even so, the amount in his account didn't even budge. With the issues done, Jack left the broker's company with 3 employees. Agnes the confident lady, George, the resolute young man and finally Charles a reserved young man. Since he didn't have a car that could carry the 3 of them, they had to take a taxi. But they were not going to the store immediately. They were going to Delight Mall. The reason for that was simple, he had to get a pair uniform for his employees. After that, he would see if there were things that they needed to make their work efficient. Seeing that they had arrived in front of one of the most popular malls in the city, the 3 couldn't help but wonder if the grocery store was located here. Of course, this thought was fleeting as it was eliminated the next second. After all those that opened their business inside Delight Mall were super rich and wouldn't need a small company like Dan's Brokers to help them get employees. As long as they posted that there was vacancy, it was a sure bet that there would be a long line of graduates looking for an opportunity to be employed. The reason as to why they were here, Jack told them, "We have to get you some uniform for the store. The store is unique, so you'll get several pairs of uniform. We're here because the uniforms are going to be custom made." As soon as the trio heard this, they were aware. It seemed that the boss that had employed them this time was going to be generous. After entering the mall, they headed to the second floor where clothes stores and shops were located, Tarrant Designers. That's where Jack took the trio. A sales lady immediately welcomed them with a smile. "Hello sirs and madam, what would you like today? I want you to design a uniform for these 3. And, you can help me by making more of them, not just a few," Jack said. After hearing Jack's words, the lady nodded and said, "This way sir. I'll call the manager." Jack and the trio sat in the waiting area as the lady hurried into a small office to call the manager of the store. Although the 3 couldn't be said to be rich, they had visited such a mall either during their lines of work, shopping or window shopping. Thus, they weren't looking around like village people coming to a city for the first time. After about a minute, a middle-aged man in a suit hurried over from the office while accompanied by the saleslady. "Hello sir, I am the manager of this branch, Calvin Dexton. I have been told that you would like us to design a uniform for you?" He greeted Jack before asking. "That's right. I want a good uniform. One that has been designed well by top designers. For men, a shirt, a trouser, shoes and a blazer. As for women, it would be a blouse, a skirt, shoes and a blazer. Jack went on to give the description of what he wanted. Of course, the shoes and things like a badge wouldn't need too much effort, as shoes could be easily found in the store and the badge could be easily designed. He didn't want to go into different stores just to get this done. That was the reason as to why he wanted everything to be done by Taran Designers. They were a top clothing company in the country. Seeing that Jack was a big client, the manager treated him even better and with more respect. The name that Jack gave wasn't Alfix Grocery Store, this was another person's name. So, he simply gave the name of the store following his own name, Jackson Enterprise. For the badge, they would have to add a GD, which stood for Grocery Department. He was going to start an enterprise and the grocery was just one of the businesses that he was going to run. The trio who were listening from the side were shocked after hearing that Jack was going to start an enterprise. They felt proud that they were going to be the first employees. After getting out of the mall, Jack looked at the 3 employees of his and said, "Let's get some cars for the store." It wasn't long before they arrived in front of a Bentley Motors supply branch in Inchoate City. They were already in the center of the city and as a result, they got there in a little over 10 minutes. Jack wanted to buy several cars. One would be for delivery, another for his employees' transportation and finally, his own car. A bike was good, but during harsh weather, it wasn't suitable at all. This Bentley store had several cars that he could purchase. So, without any hesitation, the 4 of them entered the shop. It was like a showroom, as he could see that there were several cars that were put on display. He nodded to himself. As expected of this brand, there were several cool-looking cars here. As a young man, his blood obviously boiled as he looked at several sport cars that were present here. He kept the urge of going over there and buying all the sport cars in the shop as he looked at the salesperson that was heading his way. It was a man who was in his early 30s. He could be said to be handsome, but not by much. Just like always, the store wasn't congested as cars were different from clothes and other things. "Welcome to our shop, sir. We have different types of cars here. We have sport cars, SUVs, pickups and so on. I'm sure you'll like them." As soon as the man arrived in front of Jack, he began introducing what was present in the shop. The other salespersons could only blame themselves for being slow to react when it came to receiving a customer. They were paid in terms of commission. After all, the one that sold the most expensive car would obviously receive a high commission. From the Jack's handsome looks, it was obvious that he wasn't a street boy that had just come to admire the cars. What's more, he was being followed by 3 people and they could easily that all 3 of them were older than him. "Well, I want an SUV and a sports car." Jack was direct about what he wanted. There was no need for him to beat around the bush. He wanted a car and he wanted to buy it. Only then would he be able to do things faster, as the store still needed to be opened. After hearing Jack's words, the salesperson's eyes immediately lit up. This was money. An SUV and a sports car. This was money falling directly onto his lap in form of commission. The other salespersons were even more dejected. They kept on scolding themselves for not acting faster. "This way, sir." The salesperson led the way as he showed Jack and the trio the cars that were available. After going a few rounds in the shop, Jack decided on a Bentley Bentayga. Salesperson immediately gave the introduction. The hybrid powertrain at the heart of the Bentayga Odyssey Edition delivers Bentley's hallmark combination of exhilarating power in tandem with an impossibly refined ride. Its pairing of an advanced e-motor with a 3.0-liter twin-turbocharged V6 petrol engine can deliver a combined 456 bhp, 462 PS, and 516 pounds-foot, 700 Newton-meters, of torque. You can drive for at least 28 miles, 45 kilometers, on electric power only, WLTP, a significant increase compared to the previous model. The Bentayga Odyssey Edition, limited to just 70 cars globally, can be considered a new milestone on Bentley's sustainability journey. It has an intelligent navigation system as well as it is connected to Wi-Fi and online radio. When we talk about comfort, the front seat comfort specification is fitted as standard, offering ventilation in both front seats, plus a massage function and winged comfort headrests. The seats also gain adjustable cushion and backrest bolsters. Jack listened to the lengthy description of the SUV and nodded. This was just a good car for his employees, just in case they would have to be moving around. After all, he was going to start an enterprise. How much for the car? Seeing that everything was good, he asked for the price. Well, it wasn't like it was going to matter about the price, as he had enough money in his account. The thing that made him so happy was the fact that there were only 70 of such cars in the world. Thinking of this, he had an idea. How many of this car aren't sold yet? He wanted to buy all the cars that were remaining. The salesperson was just about to talk about the price when he was interrupted by Jack's question. He opened his mouth but he couldn't reply for a while. Seeing Jack's serious expression, he immediately said, "Ahem, there were about 38 the last time that I checked last week. As for the price, it would cost $650,399. Jack nodded. The price wasn't that high. So, he would pay. But after hearing that out of 70 there were only 38 left, and that was the previous week, he immediately got anxious and said, "Don't worry about the price. Look at how many of the cars are left and make sure that they're not going to sell them. I'm going to buy them all." Those that heard him were left awed and speechless at the same time. Did you hear? That guy wants to buy all the Bentley Bentegers that are left in the world. This person sure is rich. I heard that there are 70 of the same design globally. It has been a while now. It's obvious that they have already sold some of them. I guess Philip is lucky to get such a customer today. He'll surely get much commissioned. Hey, if there are only 70 of such cars globally, then why is this one in a showroom of such a small city? This is the policy. They will rotate in different shops in different cities. Next week, this car would have been taken to another city if it wasn't going to be purchased. Although only 20 are left, I want them all. Can you organize for them to be delivered? I'll come back tomorrow to give you the address for the delivery, Jack said. That can be done, sir. As soon as he said that, he immediately charged back to his office to do the booking so as to make sure that none of the remaining cars were sold. After all, if he sold these cars in his shop, he might even get promoted. Jack looked at Philip and handed him the card. Philip received the card with trembling hands. He was just about to go and complete the procedures for the car that was currently available in the shop when Jack stopped him. "We haven't seen the sports car yet." This immediately reminded Philip that Jack wasn't here for the SUV alone, but for a sports car and a pickup. Ho's eyes shone with even more splendor as he thought of the commission that he was going to receive at the end of the day. He immediately became enthusiastic as he led the way towards the sports car section. The crowd followed along as they wanted to see what this nouveau riche will buy next. He found a Bentley Continental that caught his eye. And Philip immediately gave the introduction of the car. This is a Continental GT. There is no more accomplished combination of high performance with the practicality you need to truly enjoy long journeys. Its twin-turbocharged 4.0-liter engine has the power to deliver exhilarating performance the moment you put your foot down, accompanied by the much-loved exhaust note that only a V8 engine can provide. With 4 driving modes ranging from comfort to sport, and the facility to configure your own settings, the Continental GT guarantees a gratifying drive. The power of the Continental GT is truly formidable: 542 bhp, 550 PS, 0 to 60 in 3.9 seconds, 0 to 100 km per hour in 4.0 seconds, and an incredible top speed of 198 miles per hour, 318 km per hour. Yet power is just one dimension of this car's driving experience. Connected services include online radio, over-the-air map updates for the sat-nav and traffic sign recognition. The My Bentley smartphone app adds features such as perimeter alert, informing you if your car leaves a predefined area, alongside the facility to preheat the cabin to an optimum temperature. There's also the intelligent navigation system, wireless charging, Wi-Fi and so on. The introduction was indeed detailed. Jack nodded and asked for the price. The price of this Continental GT is $7,399,999, Philip said with his eyes shining. It was obvious that after this, the amount of commission that he would receive would make his life have a qualitative leap. "Okay, I'll get one. Now for the pickup." Jack nodded as he made his decision before turning his attention to the pickup section. After looking at the pickups present in the shop, he found that they were mostly luxury pickups and not those that matched the work of carrying a grocery supplies. So, he decided to do the payment for what he was going to buy first. He was buying 24 Bentley Bentegers. The total price was $15,609,576. Plus, he was buying a sports car, a Continental GT whose price was $7,399,999. For the shipping fee, a number plate, insurance and so on, Jack paid $27,000. This was to make sure that it was going to be fast. Then, there came the issue of customization. He wanted 5 of the Bentley Bentegers to have the logo for his new enterprise. Of course, since the 5 vehicles would be in the grocery department, they would have a GD added below the name Jackson Enterprise. As for the others, Jack decided that they should have the logo for his brand. Of course, the logo wasn't out yet and he was going to look for a designer for it. Then, it would be sent to the clothing shop and the Bentley shop. As for his sports car, there was nothing that needed to be added. He felt that it was okay the way that it was. For the customization, it cost him a total of $149,500. This was for all the 24 cars. Of course, since he was going to use the one that was present in the shop currently, the customization would be done after the others were delivered. It took more than an hour for all the procedures to be carried out. Immediately after that, Jack got out of the shop with the manager Evans Morris and the gleeful Philip under the envious and awed gazes of the other salespersons and those that were visiting the shop. Jack had just spent a total of $23,186,075. This brought his balance to $28,429,436. This was just enough to ensure that the store was fully supplied with stock. Now, his Jackson grocery department would only be left with the issue of getting the stock and expansion. Since there was no vehicle present in the shop that could be used for the grocery delivery, he changed his destination to the available trucks shop. It was a Freightliner shop. He decided to leave his sports car and the bike at the Bentley shop as they left on the SUV. Since George was a delivery person before, he drove while Jack sat on the passenger's seat. Charles and Agnes both sat on the back seats. After getting inside this car, he felt that there was no exaggeration when they talked about comfort in this Bentayga. He nodded in appreciation. George's driving skills were good as he had gone to the driving school and he used to participate in racing before he became a deliveryman. Of course, it was only for a year and a half that he participated in racing. It didn't take them that long to reach the shop that had trucks. The trucks were displayed in the showroom for people to admire. He didn't want to wander around so much as it was already getting close to lunchtime. He had to complete things faster so that he could open the store on this very day. He found a Cascadia Freightliner. This truck was considered somehow big and at the same time not big. Well, it could be said to be the appropriate size for a city. It wasn't like those cargo trucks that moved very long distances. It had refrigeration system, just what was needed. With this, he wouldn't have to worry about grocery items going bad. He asked George if he could drive it and he said that there were only a few cars that he couldn't drive and a truck wasn't among them. So, with a total cost of $419,350, he left the shop claiming that the truck would be taken later on or it would be delivered to the address that he would give if there would be a need for it to. After they left the shop, Jack asked George for the place where they could get a supplier. George immediately drove the SUV to the outskirts of the city. Of course, the area that they headed towards wasn't like Yellow Street. Although this part of the city wasn't congested by office buildings, he could see that the area was clean. This was the industrial side of the city. It wasn't long before they arrived in front of a 7-story building that had a large base area. There were several trucks and pickups that were going to and fro here. Since George had been here before, he was familiar with the procedures. Before long, they met with the manager in charge of the sales department, Kevin. "Welcome, Mr. Jack." Since he was told not to use the Alfonso name, Jack decided not to use it at all. Please visit panda-nove1.com. "I would like to have a cooperation with your company." "Of course, the cooperation is for the supply of the grocery products." Jack went straight to the point. The amount of stock that you want is what will determine the cooperation." Kevin replied. "The amount of stock hasn't been fully determined, but what you can be sure of is that it cannot decrease but it will keep on increasing," Jack said. He hadn't thought of this point when he came. But still, he was going to expand the business further and there was no need for him to worry about the stock that he would be getting being excess. Now, that's a problem. To sign a contract, we will need to get a figure on which we can both agree on." Kevin frowned after seeing that Jack hadn't even prepared anything. "Well, this can be said to be the preparation. During this week, the stores that I am intending on starting will be opened. So, that's the reason as to why the stock isn't determined yet." Jack then went on to explain that he was opening grocery stores all over the city. After hearing this, Kevin's tensed brows slightly relaxed. He then asked, "So, what amount of stock would you like to start with?" "I want to start with $500,000, probably if there's any in your warehouse I can take it now. As for the others, I will inform you on when they're needed," Jack replied. After hearing that the initial amount of stock that Jack wanted was going to cost $500,000, and this was the initial stock, Kevin was relieved. It seems that he's not here to joke, he thought to himself. After they came to an agreement, the contract was drafted. The contract of supply was that the maximum stock that would be supplied would be worth $30 million in 3 months. This was the time that Jack was going to starting, and could be said that it would be a testing period. Of course, Jack wasn't worried about losses at all. After all, with the 100 times income multiplier system, the income would definitely be higher than the losses. But he wasn't ready to run a business at a loss. After they were done with the contract, Jack brought them to the store that he'd purchased the previous day. The three raised their brows. They were wondering to themselves, this guy is so rich, why would he need to open a store in such a backward place? But they didn't dare to ask the question out loud. So, they followed Jack into the store. Although the store wasn't that big, it was decent in the street that they were in. Jack turned and looked at them. Then he said, "If you guys work well, then I might make you the leaders of the branches of the surrounding streets. This is the benefit of being my first employees. As for the salary, don't worry about it. The better you perform, the better your salary. So, don't worry about the figures that are written on the contracts." Jack ignored their astonished gazes and added fuel to the already burning flame. "Thank you, boss." The three thanked him in unison. They clearly knew that their qualifications weren't that high. So, for them to be in charge of an entire street was something big, not to mention a few other streets. Thank you for listening this, and please, if you need more, please drop comment.